It's Wednesday, August 5th, 2015, and this is the Product Mentor Talk. Today we're joined by one of our mentors, Dominic Gadoury, Director of Product Management at ADP, and he's going to be leading a talk on why every product manager needs to know big data. So for those of you who are joining us for the first time, allow me to just briefly explain the format. People you see in the room with me here are mentors and mentees within the Product Mentor program. It's a program that pairs up mentors and mentees in product management who are actively in the field or trying to transition their careers to the side or up within the field for a period of 6 months. To help make better product people, and so that in a situation where we can kind of all learn and get a bit better at it. With that said, so everyone can kind of just wave hi briefly there. I'll tell it. And so let's just quickly go around the room. Everyone just say if you're a mentor or mentee and just who you are. Let's start with Pranav. Pranav?
Hi,
Pranav?
my name is Pranav, and I'm a program manager. Microsoft, I'm a mentee in this program.
And let's go to Paul.
Hi, my name is Paul Hurwitz. I am Director of Active Analytics at Active Health Management, and I am a mentor in the program.
So just a moment here. Mute yourself. We're getting feedback. Let me test that. Hey, David. We're still getting feedback. We're still getting feedback. Let's see. Testing. All right, let's try this one more. Let me just start over. Pranav, just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, I'm Pranav, and I'm a program manager at Microsoft, and I've been a mentee in this program, and Suresh is my mentor. So I've been learning about product management. A few things that I've learned in the beginning of my mentorship is a lot around how to set the right pricing, what sort of factors leads into it, and how to build your customer and sales funnel and sort of see your customers through this pipeline. So those are the things I've been learning around in this in the program for the first half of the program. Yep.
Great. And to Paul.
Hi, my name is Paul Hurwitz. I am Director of Active Analytics, which is Director of Product at Active Health Management in New York City. I'm a mentor in the program and having a great time with it.
Great. Dominic.
Hey folks, it's Dominic Gadoury. I am a mentor in the program. This is my second year in the mentor program, yeah, it's great to be here tonight to talk about big data.
Great. And to David.
Hey guys, my name is Dave Schoenberger, and I'm Director of Product at NeoCare Solutions, part of Healthogen. That was my daughter Sadie. She's not a part of this program. I am a group product manager. What am I? A group
product mentor.
Group product mentor. It's a new thing, so I'm just coming to terms with the term. Thank you all.
And Bettina.
Hi, I'm Bettina Vancia. I'm a product manager at Noom. We make mobile apps for weight loss, and I'm a mentee in this program.
And to Andrew.
Hey, my name is Andrew Fields. I'm a mentee in this program. I work for Verizon, and I work on their mobile apps, and I'm a product manager there.
Great. And I am Jeremy Horn, also known as the Product Guy, and I'll be moderating. So as you have questions that come in, just go to theproductmentor.com/live. As those questions come in, I'll be passing them along to Dominic, and we'll be answering them in somewhat real time. If you ask generic questions, I usually save the generic questions till the end of the talk. But if they are topical, I'll feed them along at the beginning as they come in. And like I said, all the questions will get answered to the best of our abilities. But with all that said, let me hand it over to Dominic to talk about why every product manager needs to know about big data.
Great. Thanks, Jeremy. So good evening, everyone. So I'm going to talk about big data and product management. So I'll tell you a little bit about why I particularly care about this topic. We'll do kind of a quick introduction to data science and what it is. We don't need to really define product management, I don't think, but we'll just talk about it briefly as it relates to the relationship between a product manager and a data scientist or a group of data scientists. We'll talk about what kind of skill sets does a data scientist bring to the table, and then we'll talk a little bit about what benefit do both a data scientist and a product owner bring to a project. So what is a data scientist benefit in a product owner? And then how does product benefit from having a data scientist as part of the work that we do? And then finally, we will go through a real-life scenario. Actually, it's a fake scenario, but kind of a real-life scenario of how a project might go and what the different stages are of working together on a big data project. So why do I care about this particular topic? So first of all, I've been with ADP for 15 years this week. I've been lucky enough to be part of the product management organization from day one. And so as a result of that, I've had a great opportunity to move around the organization in various roles. My current role is actually developing software to support clients and companies to be in compliance with the Affordable Care Act. But just about a year and a half ago, I was working in the heart of New York City in our innovation lab, and my primary role was to work with a team of data scientists to try to drive value out of the tremendous amount of data that ADP has. And so this presentation is actually kind of a result of all that great experience, and hopefully it'll bring some value to us all. The picture on the top left there is actually me in Venice a little less than a year ago. Actually, the last time I did a talk here in the Mentor program, I was like days before this picture was taken. And so this was my honeymoon. I got married last year, and we were in Venice. My husband and I were in Venice, and we were trying to decide about where to catch a gondola and how to go about getting a gondola, what was the right time to catch one, and so forth. And it dawned on me that when I went online to look for information about this, there were probably thousands of pieces of information to recommend different ways to catch a gondola, what time of day to go, how much to expect to pay, and so forth. And I realized that big data is really having a direct impact on the small decisions we make day in and day out. And so this one gondola ride, which by the way was one of the most awesome experiences of my life, was really made better as a result of big data and the fact that there's so much data out there that has context, that has personal experience, and so forth. The bottom left-hand corner is actually another example of where big data kind of like hit me as, wow, this is a moment of inspiration from a product perspective. So some of you may recognize it's the Spotify annual report that they put out for the first time last year to its users. And it basically told me everything I wanted to know and more about my behaviors around listening to music. How often do I listen to music? What times of day do I listen to music? What kind of music do I listen to in the morning? Do I listen to it on the go? Do I listen to it on my computer? And so forth. And it was a really cool way for me to have a personal experience with Spotify and its music service to bring value. Now, whether I would stay with Spotify just because of that feature or not is something to yet be determined, but it really hit me as like one of those things of where big data really comes to help at a very personal level. And then finally, we're seeing big data is getting included in many business school programs, and you're starting to see certifications on data science, and I wouldn't be surprised if data science is not part of a core curriculum of product management in the future. So what is data science? So basically, data science is obviously the study of data, right? And these individual kind of pieces of information here just go to show how quickly data is growing. In 2013, we had basically a digital universe that looked like 4.4 zettabytes. It's going to go up to 44 by 2020. We have massive amounts of data in very specific areas. So one example is latitude and longitude. We probably have more latitude and longitude data out there about everything. I mean, just about every app on the iPhone and Android captures latitude and longitude. However, one of the stats that kind of hit me recently is in 2013, it was reported that only that 85% of the data that enterprises have, that business has, is not even used by the business. So while all those apps may be capturing where I'm using their app and where I'm moving from and to while I'm using their app, many businesses and many app kind of developers are not even using that data quite yet. So there's still a huge untapped area yet to be discovered. One thing I would also point out is that yes, there's lots of data out there, but one of the most valuable pieces of data that is out there is tag data. So it's basically data that's been, I would say, curated by human beings. So whatever data we have that can be curated has like 3 times the value of just collecting data like latitude and longitude without any context of what the user's experience is or what it is they're doing at the time or how they're feeling or whatever the case may be. This is a kind of cool visualization of how I think most people see big data or data science or when they think about data. Most of us think about data from a visualization perspective. So what do we typically see? Well, we typically see the USA Today snippets. We usually see the great visualizations like in a Tableau or a Click or one of like the great analytics solutions that are out there. But we often forget about all the things that happened to get to that place of the visualization. And one of the eye-openers for me in terms of digging into what data science is all about is it's very easy to kind of come up with some sort of set of calculations that supposedly answer a particular question or supposedly tell a particular story. But unless we really understand the context of where the data came from in order to derive that visualization, we really don't know the true story. And oftentimes I find that many companies, many newspapers, many websites misrepresent data that's out there by just kind of promote whatever it is they're trying to promote without being upfront about how they got to that data. And so I think it's important as product managers for us to kind of keep that in mind. And that's the reason why I kind of dig deeper into this whole kind of area, is because I wanted to understand what is a good methodology in order for us to share data that is meaningful and valuable, but also very real for our customers and clients. All right, so product management. So product manager defined, well, we're friggin' awesome, right? We're basically, I think in previous talks I've heard the terms mini CEO, the glue, air traffic controller. We're all part of this organization and part of this mentor program because we love product management, so I'm not going to go a whole lot into who we are. What I do want to go more into is who is a data scientist? Like, what is it about them that makes them so unique? So this is one way of looking at a data scientist. So they bring a whole lot of math and statistical knowledge to the table. So being a data scientist means that you've probably taken, so many data scientists I know have a PhD, just as an example. And most of the PhD programs they've been part of have a lot of mathematical courses, a lot of theory on math and statistics and so forth. So one of the things that they bring to the table is truth from numbers. They are able to find the truth in a very methodical way to derive an answer to a question. They also bring some expertise. So they may not know necessarily about the business that they work within very well, but they do know about the numbers that they're collecting. So for instance, if I'm a data scientist and I'm looking at average number of hours per day, that's the ideal for a, let's just say for a pilot. and I want to know what's the best number of hours a pilot can work where they can be the most productive, most efficient, and the safest with their aircraft equipment. I'm going to know the numbers. I'm going to know where I'm getting the numbers from, and I'm going to know those sources very well. And so that's one of the kind of benefits a data scientist brings to the table. And then finally, the hacking skills. The hacking skills is what it sounds like. It's not about hacking into things illegally or getting data illegally. It's really about thinking outside the box on how to attain data. So it's really being a sleuth about getting to the core of the data that's necessary in order to derive whatever answers or value you want to derive from the numbers. And then finally, the data scientist is this is kind of like their realm of comfortability in general. So they feel really comfortable, as I mentioned, in the statistical skills. They have some computer data engineer, computer science expertise. So they need to know, for instance, okay, we've built this algorithm. What are we going to do with it? How do we integrate it into the product that we're building this particular feature around? So they need to be able to talk to development to be able to integrate whatever it is they're finding into the product, especially when you're talking about live data. And they're going to obviously need to know the business a little bit. They're going to need to know the domain expertise. So if I'm collecting data, like I said, about pilot hours, I need to know something about the airline industry. But I don't need to be the expert as a data scientist. It's really we as product owners and product managers who bring that expertise to the table as we kind of work through different types of big data projects. So next, how does a data scientist benefit in a how does a data scientist benefit from the product owner? So first of all, the data scientist is really provided clarity by virtue of the fact that the product owner is part of the work that they do. So the data scientist really understands what the business needs are. We bring to them, hey, this is what the business is about. This is what our strategy is. This is what we're working on. These are our clients.
Your slide seems to have disappeared.
Sorry?
Your slide disappeared? Your slide disappeared?
Oops. Hold on 1 second. So they bring, basically we bring as product owners the clarity that's needed for the data scientists to kind of understand what's the priority, what's the importance of the stuff that I'm working on. We're also able to help the data scientists provide ROI on their own salary. Data scientists are not cheap. They're actually one of the higher end salaries in the technology world. And so by virtue of the fact that we can draw a correlation between the work the data scientist does and actual value and actual product that is being sold, we can then give the data scientist the information they need to say, because I did this project or these projects over the last year or whatever, I was able to help the organization create this new product that made this many millions of dollars or whatever the case may be. So we are sort of one of the sources that helps the data scientists to be able to essentially keep their own job. And then finally, data scientists, they sometimes we peg them as kind of the some people will peg them as sometimes like the geek, the really smart guys who are too smart to talk to. Kind of brings you back to that high school feel of the really smart person who sits by themselves at lunch or whatever. And you know what? Data scientists, they want to hang out with everybody else too. They want to just they want to be connected to the organization they work with. And I've seen both happen. I've seen some data scientists who start off and they're working really hard, but they're never given the opportunity to connect to the organization. And as a result, they kind of lose a connection that basically makes them feel like, I don't even know what I'm here for. And I've seen data scientists actually leave organizations because of that. So we as product owners have the opportunity to be able to bring them into the fold and bring other parts of the business into the fold with them and be able to make the connection so that they feel that they are part of a bigger picture kind of outcome and are not kind of off to themselves. All right, so what does product benefit? How does product benefit from the data scientist? So there's a number of different reasons and ways that I think we as product owners and managers benefit from data scientists or from data science in general. So the first of those is really getting to a place where we understand our customers. So this is the ability for us to get a detailed customer profile. There is tons of information out on the internet about lots of people, and those people include the people that we sell our products to. And so while we can come up with great personas, we can do interviews with our clients and customers, what's going to draw a more holistic picture is for us to have raw data about those customers or those clients and be able to draw a more kind of defined profile of who they are. So one of the ways I think data scientists bring organizations great value is by understanding who your customers are. The next way that I think we derive benefit from data scientists is by determining risks. So we're able to derive data from various sources that have some sort of influence on how our product is doing well and how our product is not doing well, or those risk areas. So for instance, there are things we could keep an eye on in the marketplace that have maybe nothing directly to do with our business, but have some influence on our business in some outlier way. So one kind of example that I keep coming back to is a beer distributor. So let's imagine there's a beer distributor. It's about 5 miles from a major NFL football stadium. And one of the pieces of information you typically wouldn't have in a product in a product that maybe, let's say, staffs up how many people you need to have in the warehouse to work on a particular weekend is the weather, for instance. So we have one of the greatest sources of data that we have in the United States is actually weather data. So we've been collecting weather since the early 1800s. We have more weather data than probably any other kind of data today. That's how, and the reason why meteorologists have really decent models that help us predict weather, right, is because we have so many years of data to be able to work from. So if I'm the beer distributor and I've been in business for 20 years and I know what my business has been in the past and I know what the weather is, so I can bring that in from an outside open source, I can then do a correlation and say, how many bottles of beer do I sell when there's a thunderstorm on a football game day, or whatever the case may be? So it gives us an opportunity to determine opportunities. So this slide really should say determine opportunities and risks in order to benefit the business. And then finally, and this is the one I'll talk to you a little bit longer, is opportunities for innovation. And this is the one that I think we probably, as product managers, we read about every day in the papers, we get excited about in our own products. How do we bring big data to drive innovation? So really what it comes down to is bringing all sorts of data sources together and learning more about, for instance, what are people saying about our product? Let's do a scan of Twitter. Let's look at everything people have said about ADP over the last year, and let's see what kind of keywords they talk about. So this is like a mini big data project. Even though it's kind of on the social media side of things, it is a way for us to kind of look at data and be able to bring it from outside sources and then some calculations based on that. It also allows us to use the data to create more intelligent products. So if I know more about my user and I know more about the different elements of what's happening when they're using my product, then I can create a more specific user experience. And there's no better example of this than with Netflix. So Netflix, 4.9 million users, active users today, and we all know what Netflix uses this data for. They use it mostly to derive algorithms to determine, based on the fact that you are this age, you live in this location, you have these friends, and you watched these previous movies and TV shows, we think you're going to want to watch this particular show or this particular movie. Another way that Netflix actually uses, one of the biggest ways they use big data is actually not about their content or about their recommendation engine. It's actually about the way in which Netflix utilizes their technology. So what they do essentially is they look at everything they know about me and where I am. So they may say, okay, Dominic, we know that you're in Southern California right now based on your internet connection. We know that you're probably in a hotel based on some information we can gather from your connection. We know you're probably therefore on business because we know that your billing address is out of Denver. We know this is what you expect from us because you've been a customer with us for X number of years. And so they're able to actually throttle and show a specific type of, they're able to show the movie in a particular format that is best for me and that is best for what my expectations are in terms of speed, connectivity, quality of image, quality of sound, and so forth. So Netflix has really been kind of at this game for a while. Amazon, another great example, 270 million customers. Of course, they use their data for all sorts of purposes, but the biggest purpose that derives their value and their business model is advertising. So they know a lot of information about us in order to advertise certain products within certain mediums, whether it's Facebook or Twitter or blogs or the newspaper or whatever the case may be, so that, based on the fact that you looked at this particular book, we think you might want to buy it, blah, blah, blah. And so they're able to advertise based on things that they know about us. Starbucks, another great example, 9.3 million customers per day. Their biggest use of big data is actually their development of new stores or new locations. So they actually they're probably the best in the game at doing location analysis. So they're able to look at everything from how much traffic can they expect at a new location that they're thinking about opening a new store at, how many of those are going to buy Starbucks coffee, and that's the reason why we see Starbucks, especially in New York City, which I know many of you are from, where they pop up in one place and then like months later they pop up literally across the street because they have a lot of big data about their customers and how they migrate from one place to another, what kinds of businesses are starting to be developed, and so forth and so on. Okay. So that's kind of like, I think, I've kind of covered who's a data scientist, who's a product manager, how do we interact with each other, what do we benefit from one another. So now I want to talk a little bit about a real-world problem and what are the stages for a big data project. So first of all, most data scientists I've talked to yearn for a problem to solve. Most of them are not big about sitting at their desk and coming up with theoretical ideas of how they might build an algorithm that will one day replace some person with some automated functionality within a system or a product or whatever. Most data scientists that I've worked with really want to know what is a problem that I can try to solve with numbers and with data. So let's talk a little bit about how that might work in the real world. So, real world problem.
Dominic, we just had a question come in from Andrew. I'm going to hand it over to Andrew.
Okay, so my question is, sorry, I'm getting some feedback. So my question is, I think in like the perfect world, I'd love to hang out and talk to a data scientist like hours every day. But what tends to happen, at least in the companies I've been at, are they come at a premium because, as you're saying, they're one of the most highly paid groups. So when I usually ask for something, I have to ask for very small, specific things, and wait for a huge backlog. So I guess my question revolves around: is there anything, software tools, etc., learning R, Python, or anything that a product manager could do to help them maybe do some of the things themselves and analyze the data? Because I find it often hard to get the data scientists' attention because they are so busy.
Yeah, I think it's a great question. I think, so a couple of things. One is, yes, often, especially right now, data science is so new, and so it's not like every organization has a huge data science team, except unless you work for LinkedIn or Netflix or whatever. So I think it's just building a relationship with the data scientist and talking, maybe even like spending 5 or 10 minutes a week with them and just saying, hey, this is something I'm working on. And that gives them an opportunity to kind of go back and think about some of the things that you're working on, and maybe they can come up with some ideas. As far as kind of learning data science yourself, yeah, there are some really great resources out there. So 2 things I would recommend. One is MIT has an awesome data science 3-month MOOC that I would highly recommend. It gives you a good introduction to data science. It gives you a good introduction to using a tool called R. So R and Python are kind of like the big tools that data scientists use right now. I personally, a lot of the MOOCs actually talk more about R than they do about Python because it's open source, it's free, and there's a lot more online conversation about how to use it. But the other recommendation I would make is Johns Hopkins University also has a MOOC program. So it's actually a 13-month program, and you actually take, I think, somewhere around 10 different courses, and you learn everything from the basics of data science to heavy programming in R, but it allows you to have a conversation with a data scientist at the level that they kind of expect and kind of hope for.
Cool. Thanks.
Yeah.
Great. So we don't have any other questions right now. Just letting everyone around know about the technical difficulties we are having. We're working through as many of those technical difficulties as we can. And if you aren't watching this video, I am vigorously behind the scenes working to get this video to you guys after the stream. But with that said, Dominic, take it away. Dominic, you're muted.
Okay, so here we go. So here is our real-world problem. I'm sure none of you will be able to relate to this, but the problem is American workers are stressed, which ultimately makes them sick, less happy, less satisfied, and productive. So I know this is kind of a broad kind of problem, but let's just make believe we're a startup and we want to kind of take on this problem maybe one step at a time. So our first step is really doing exactly that, is saying, okay, this is what our problem is. The second step in terms of getting into a big data project is to ask a question. We want to take our real-world problem and narrow down to one specific question. So let's just say, for instance, our question is, there's a lot of talk about meditation and its effectiveness in reducing stress and even being utilized within the workplace to help people to be more productive. So let's just throw a hypothetical question out there. Does a short meditation session once a day at work help reduce stress in the workplace? So great. So now we have our question. So one of the next things that I recommend that we do is take a look at what research has been done in the past. So we don't want to repeat what people have done already. So if some other company or some researcher or some university has already done a great deal of research in the area that we're interested in or that we're trying to solve for, then let's not replicate that. Let's borrow what they've done. Let's use the analysis that they've already accomplished. So just as an example, there's an organization called the Center for American Progress. They did a study in 2012. they looked at the cost of replacing an employee as a result of workplace stress. And they determined that workplace stress has a direct correlation to replacement of to losing employees, and that the cost of replacing an employee is anywhere from 10 to 30% of that worker's annual salary. So one of the things we might do is we might look at that research and go, okay, how does that fit into the question we're trying to answer? What are some of the limitations of the research that's been done? How can we supplement the research that's been done? What kinds of things can we look at that maybe this research didn't look at in particular? The next step is determining what data is available to answer our question. So what data sources are out there? So there's tons of data out there. Some of it you have to pay for. Some of it you have to you can get for free. There's lots of free data out there. Some of it is brand new. Some of it's old. Some of it's real time. Some of it's been manipulated already. Some of it's been already kind of cleansed and put into a good condition to use. So just as an example, if going back to, I like this travel analogy with kind of using travel data, because it's also a big set of data that is open to everybody. So if some travel company has already developed an API that allows for on-time plane departures, and they've already scrubbed all of the open source data out there about every time a plane takes off and how late that particular takeoff is, then let's use that data instead of using the raw data that we would have to scrub then. So we want to save ourselves the stress and the cost of doing as least steps as possible to get to our outcome. So let's look at our real-world example again, the workplace data. So maybe I'll look at the Department of Labor. The Department of Labor has some great data. Maybe I'd look at the Centers for Disease Control. They have lots of public data out there. In fact, they have data specifically about meditation. So I can probably find, in fact, at the Center for Disease Control, I could find somewhere around 121 static pieces of data sources that have some connection to meditation and to stress. So now that I have some ideas about what my data sources might be, this is where you kind of start to brainstorm with your data scientist, with your even maybe your Scrum team, your development team, whoever you want to involve in this process. So you might want to say, okay, I've got this list of 10 data sources that I think might have something to do with answering the question we're trying to answer. So the first thing you might brainstorm about is how does this data answer the question? How do we theorize this data might kind of lead us to a conclusion? The second question you might ask is, how clean are the data sources? Is this data so raw and so old that it's really kind of useless for us to grab? Is there a better data source that's more up to date? Is the data like really empty? Like if I go into a CSV of this data source, do I see lots of blanks that would kind of make the data analysis kind of useless? And again, this is where the data scientist kind of helps drive some of those decisions, because he or she can then say, you know what? It's okay that we have blanks. This is what we can do to accommodate for those blanks, because they have that expertise to bring to the table. And then the third thing is analysis can be done on the data to reach some kind of conclusion towards the end of answering that particular question. So now we have determined what data is available. So now let's collect the data. So now we've collected the data. Now we've got all this data that we've theorized is going to answer answer our question and hopefully solve our particular problem. So a few gotchas around collecting data. The first and foremost is be sure you have the rights to the data. There's lots of public data out there where one of the steps of getting the data is to click a checkbox that says you agree to the terms and conditions or to the license agreement or to whatever legalese that you're signing off on when you get that data. There are also lots of data sources out there that give you the data, but in the fine print it says you cannot use this data in order to develop product that you will then make revenue on. So you want to be sure that you're getting data that you're not basically breaking the law to use to derive value within your product. Data scientists are very knowledgeable about the legalese of using data. so they can bring a lot of value to that conversation. Also, if you have legal counsel that you have access to, they also are very helpful in terms of kind of sifting through whether you can use certain types of data or not. The next thing I would recommend is most of the data that's out there that's publicly available is available in two different forms. The first form is the typical CSV Excel file that you would download. If there's that, and also there's an API or there's an XML ability to get the data, definitely go for the API XML version, because that tends to be more current, cleaner. It also tends to be the most up-to-date, and actually a lot of the data tends to be in real time. So instead of having to go and download the CSV over and over again to be able to derive the value in your solution or in your product, this is something you could do on a constant, ongoing basis. Along those lines, try to use data sources that have longevity and stability. And again, as I mentioned, the tool that I'm most familiar with, and most of the data scientists I've worked with are familiar with, is R. And R has this great capability to, without going to any website or whatever, if you know a URL of an XML file or an API or whatever, R is a great tool to be able to pull data down, huge amounts of data in very, very small amounts of time, and then to be able to do the cleansing right there in the tool. By the way, just to kind of, for those of you who don't have any clue what I'm talking about when I say R, if any of you have ever taken a Statistics 101 class, you may remember this tool called SPSS. SPSS is sort of analogous to R, except it's used more in the university research world. R is more for real-time kind of ongoing data updates, and that's why that tool is used in the data science world.
Hey, so I want to just jump in right there. We've got a question from Bettina who I'm going to toss to in just one moment, but I also want to welcome those who are now joining us through the video live stream. And apologize about all the technical difficulties. The difficulties were definitely not on our side. It looks like there was a weird delay with YouTube with respect to the live stream, and it only just now spontaneously started appearing. We are hopeful that the rest of the video also at some point spontaneously presents itself, because Dominic has been giving a great presentation for the past 44 minutes, and we would love you guys to be able to see that as well. But definitely stay tuned. There's still some more to come. But with that said, let me hand it over to you, Bettina, to ask your question.
Hi. I just had a question about stakeholders. So a lot of product management is about getting the right people excited about a project, and I'm curious what kinds of roles you are talking to try to get excited when you're trying to sort of mobilize data to understand customers.
Yeah, it's a great question, Tina. So first of all, the first thing to think about oftentimes is who's paying for this data scientist or for this data science team, and really kind of working closely with whoever the funder is and whoever the managers are or the leadership are of that particular data science team. Because I think sometimes what will happen is a data scientist will get hired by a C-level person, and that C-level person has a specific intent on what that data scientist will bring to the table. Sometimes it's just to make the C-level person smarter and more knowledgeable about their business. And they don't want anybody messing with that person because they want to be smart and they want to be able to talk intelligently about their business and their customers. But oftentimes, you know, they are a shared resource, and that's kind of how I kind of term most data science groups. And so working closely with whoever is managing that team and getting in a queue, so to speak, to be able to start working with them on things that have a direct impact on the product or the areas that you're specifically responsible for. On the flip side, it's always great to say to a data science leader or data science team that you want to be involved in the stuff that they're working on, even if it isn't something to do with your direct responsibility, because then you learn a little bit about the process, and you also learn a little bit about another part of the business and what kinds of things happen as a result of big data and these kinds of projects. So hopefully that was helpful.
Great. So that's all the questions I have at the moment. But for those of you who are, again, just joining us, theproductmentor.com/live, submit your questions there, and I will pass them right along. Back to you, Dominic.
All right. Thanks, Jeremy. So we've got our data, and we've answered the questions about this data is legal for us to use, this data has some longevity to it, this data is something I can depend on. That's the other thing, by the way, is I've seen cases where developers who've developed against data sources, especially when you're talking data sources that are outside your organization and control, but even within your organization, there are data sources that you think, oh, I can use this forever. And then suddenly one day somebody shuts off that API or somebody shuts off that data source, and you're like, we have like thousands of clients who are depending on that data for a specific feature. So there's a lot of coordination that needs to happen in order to ensure that the data stream is free-flowing and open for business. So that sometimes takes a lot of communication with different parts of the organization or working very closely with other data providers. So now that we have that data, I just want to talk a little bit about the steps that we work very closely with the data scientists on. Now, some of you may go, this is kind of the boring stuff of the data, kind of big data project. And you would probably be right, but it's still important to be part of it. It's still an important conversation to have, these pieces, such as cleaning the data. So cleaning the data is one of the pieces that I think sometimes I start to yawn about, to be quite frank, but is one of the most important pieces because it ensures, as kind of going back to the beginning of the presentation, it ensures that when we answer a question, we're answering it accurately and truthfully, and we're not just kind of fibbing it. So the first of the kind of cleaning data component is cleaning the data for invalid characters. So there's lots of, like I said, there's lots of great data sources out there, but there's a lot of dirty data. And I'm sure many of you can relate to this even in your own products, especially for companies like the one I come from, where we have years and years of software development under our belt, and we have lots and lots of code that's been developed since the 1950s. As you start to migrate data into the next system, and data migrates and data migrates and data stagnates and so forth, there's a lot of cleaning to do. So now if you're a newer company and you're starting with a fresh set of data, with a fresh set of clients, then you may not experience this quite as much. But invalid characters are definitely one of the areas that need to be cleaned. The next area is inconsistent formatting. So in order for a tool like R to be able to do its job, it needs the format of the data to be perfect. Otherwise, it's going to choke on doing the analysis on the data that it has. So as an example, as you can see in the screen here, if I've chosen a specific date format, I need to stick to that date format when I'm doing my analysis across different dates in different data sources. So as you can see here, there's probably 50 or 60 types of date formats that are out there in various data sources. And so what it means is you got to pick one. It doesn't matter which one it is, because you could always convert it back to one that visually looks like what most people expect. But you got to pick one, and then you've got to clean the ones that don't look like that particular format, and so that everything is consistent across the board. Again, this is important when you're doing cross-referencing of dates or any other kind of formatted fields that cross multiple tables and fields and so forth. Missing data. This is my favorite. So missing data is a problem. So lots of great data out there, but there's lots of data that has missing elements to it. So you have to work with a data scientist to figure out, okay, if I have a blank, so in this case on the screen, I think it's employer number. It's a little hard to see, I know, but employer number is blank on a number of these records. So if my employer number is gone, does that mean that my city and zip don't matter for those records? Like, are they invaluable, or can I live without that employer number? And is it true for all the analysis I do? So if I'm doing some sort of mathematical algorithm on the data, does it matter if I have that employer number or not? So those are the conversations that you want to be involved with, because you want to hear how the data scientist is thinking about that and how they're coming to the conclusions they're coming to. Because sometimes it's a business decision. Sometimes it's a, yeah, you know what, it would be a lot more preferable if we had the employer number, but in reality, for the question we're trying to answer and the value we're trying to derive, it really doesn't matter a whole lot. Maybe in the future it will, but at this particular juncture, it doesn't. So those are the kinds of conversations that you'll be having during this kind of cleaning or cleansing period. And then step 5 is the looking at the outside range data. So I might say, okay, the average number of hours that a pilot should work to be most productive is 7 hours. Well, that number means nothing if most of the analysis actually says that 3 is the right number, and you have 10 or 15 outliers that are like 12, 13, and 14 hours. It's going to skew your numbers. And this is, again, where I think that's a very basic example that I hope most of us can relate to. But there's obviously a lot more complicated mathematical equations and numbers that data scientists can help educate us on in order to look at how does this outlier or these outliers impact the overall analysis of the numbers we're looking at. Sometimes you'll decide, you know what, the outliers don't mean that they're so infrequent or they're so meaningless to us from a business value perspective, we don't care, we can get rid of them. But sometimes they mean something, and sometimes they mean something in terms of there's a whole nother market for us to delve into. Maybe those outliers are actually these folks who really are looking for a customized solution or a customized product that we've never even thought of before. So it's important for us to kind of have those conversations about those particular outliers. And finally, this should be step 6, I apologize. Step 6 is doing our data analysis. So this is where the data scientists, so first of all, data scientists geek out at this stage. This is the part where they get like their frowns turn to smiles, they start getting jittery, they start drinking lots of coffee, they're very excited because now they get to do what they're paid to do. This is what they've gone to years and years of school for. They've done years and years of equations and done papers and thesis and all this stuff so that they can get to this point. And that's really the number crunching point. So they're able to use a specific set of statistical models and statistical methods to be able to derive some output from all the data that you guys have collected. And so, and ultimately, to be able to answer the question that goes back to the original step where we started. By the way, this is where also the data scientist starts to sound like Charlie Brown's teacher. I cannot tell you how many meetings I've sat in where a group of data scientists are talking about what they're doing in this stage of the project, and I just get excited because I see them excited, but I get a little lost. And that's okay. It's okay to get lost. And by the way, it's also okay to ask very basic questions and to say, I have no idea what you're talking about right now, but it would be great if you could kind of bring it to my level and help me understand why you're talking about deciding on this model versus that model. Some of this stuff is actually pretty interesting. So never be afraid to ask questions or to feel like you're going to ask a stupid question or be dumb or whatever. This is a collaboration project, and it's something that both they are learning from us on and vice versa. And ta-da! Finally, so by the way, this is a product that I just kind of picked out of thin air. It's actually getting a lot of press. It kind of goes back to our original kind of theoretical question, which is how does meditation have an impact on productivity? This is an app called Headspace. They have a really kind of cool UI, user experience. They have done a lot of research around meditation and its impact on workplace stress. And so ultimately, this is where we want to get. We want to be able to answer the question we started with: what impact does meditation every day in the workplace have on productivity? You want to be able to bring all of the research that you've done, all of the final calculations and outcomes, and then be able to make business decisions. And sometimes those business decisions are a whole product. Sometimes it's a very specific feature. Sometimes it's a very specific use case for a very specific user type. And it's based on information that we're getting from real time from our user base. For those of you who have used this or know anything about this product, I have a sneaking suspicion they've actually done research to suggest that guys with British accents actually do better meditation than guys with American accents. But anyway, that's beside the point. The last thing I want to point out is, in terms of answering questions, deriving value, and collaboration, is we're seeing more and more, and this, by the way, is actually a collaboration page on the Headspace website. We're seeing more and more startups in particular, but a lot of companies are starting to collaborate with outside sources to help with the research and the investigative processes. So this particular company and app did collaboration with, as you can see here, some universities, with NHS, and so one of the things I would really highly encourage is looking at how can you share the wealth of information and share some of the workload in order to derive value, because quite honestly, there's a lot of organizations out there that are probably looking at the same data, maybe for very different reasons, but you could collaborate together and come up with outcomes and research that benefits both them and also your own business strategy and products. And that is that.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you very much, Dominic, on the talk on why every product manager needs to know big data. As always, the video as well as the PowerPoint presentation will be made available on YouTube and SlideShare. And also a big thank you from me, Jeremy Horn, the product guy, and everyone else who was able to join us tonight, as well as everyone who joined us from the room on today's Product Mentor Talk. Also, if you're interested in being a product mentor, it's a great gig if you can get it. Like today's speaker, to really help product people of all levels, of all sorts, of all types of backgrounds. Please go visit theproductmentor.com and sign up today. And also, if you're looking to fill a new product job with a great product person, visit our very own free-for-all job board at theproductjobs.com. And again, thank you all of you for joining us today, and we'll see you guys all next time. Bye.